Well, yes, we think it does. Let's look at some numbers to see why. Florentino Perez's Galactico era at Real Madrid, the one that brought Zinedine Zidane, Luis Figo, Roberto Carlos, Raúl, David Beckham and Ronaldo together at the Santiago Bernabéu, looked like the worst kind of vanity project, one where an overwhelmingly wealthy nobleman unites all the top stars of the day at his court simply to feed his own ego. History has widely written off the Galactico experiment as a failure. This seems a little unfair. It certainly ended badly, thanks to Perez's inability to stand by his managers, his impatience, and his refusal to realize that maybe artisans are as important as artists. But it brought Madrid a Champions League trophy, their 9th, as well as a Spanish league title in 2003. Perez might not have realized his dream of establishing a Harlem Globetrotters-style dominion over the game, but his money was not entirely wasted. Next time he returned to the club to try to repeat the trick, this time buying Kaká, Xabi Alonso and Cristiano Ronaldo, as well as hiring José Mourinho as coach, which was an exercise in reducing soccer to its basest level. His plan, it seemed, was to take things like managerial judgment, scouting and team building out of the game and, instead, simply buy the best players in the world. If he did that, Real would win everything. This argument is the most extreme example of what happens when you think of soccer as a strongest link game. By clustering stars together, Perez was assuming that his team's overall performance would be multiplied by their excellence alone and not affected by the less than heavenly bodies that might be needed to fill out the squad. Remember our earlier example of the company with 11 workers. Perez's thinking was that if as many as possible execute their tasks at or near 100% quality, the total effectiveness would increase. This is not without merit. By replacing Guti, a player operating at, say, 80%, with Zidane, who worked at 100%, then Real's results would tangibly improve. This is the transfer market boiled down. Teams try to replace their players with better ones, in the hope they will reap the benefits. That is why weaker players are cast aside or replaced and why superstars are bought. Perez knew that he could not afford to buy 11 superstars all over the pitch, or more, as injuries and suspensions would always mean he would need a squad. He could, at best, manage half a dozen of the very best in the world. The rest would have to come from the youth team. This was the policy of cracks y Pavones, of superstars like Zidane and homegrown hopefuls such as Francisco Pavón, with the emphasis very much on the superstars. They would cover up for the weaknesses of the youngsters, while at the same time helping them to improve. Arrigo Sacchi. Though not a top-level player himself, Sacchi was the mastermind behind the rise of AC Milan, making them the finest side in the world in the late 1980s. In 2004, the Italian was appointed as technical director of Real Madrid, brought in by Perez in a bid to ensure the Galactico project remained on track. Sacchi was unimpressed. There was no project, he said. It was about exploiting qualities. So, for example, we knew that Zidane, Raúl and Figo didn't track back, so we had to put a guy in front of the back four who would defend. But that's reactionary soccer. It doesn't multiply the players' qualities exponentially. Which actually is the point of tactics, to achieve this multiplying effect on the players' abilities. The reason that talent does not always win out on the pitch is not just due to the role of chance, though this is vastly important. It is because soccer offers so many ways to multiply your abilities, not simply add them. Tactics, for a start. A team of very good players who have had their skills maximized by the use of an intelligent tactic can beat a team of superstars whose talents are exploited but not integrated. Sacchi understood this intuitively and drilled it home to his own Galacticos while at Milan, the Dutchmen Ruud Gullit and Marco van Basten, in a clever training drill. I convinced Gullit and Van Basten by telling them that 5 organized players would beat 10 disorganized ones, he said. And I proved it to them. I took 5 players, Giovanni Galli in goal, Tassotti, Maldini, Costacurta and Baresi. The other team had 10 players, Gullit, Van Basten, Rijkaard, Verdes, Avani, Ancelotti, Colombo, Donadoni, Lantagnotti and Manari. They had 15 minutes to score against my 5 players. The only rule was that if we won possession or Chile lost the ball, they had to start over from 10 meters inside their own half. I did this all the time and they never scored. Not once. Sacchi is not the only manager to have seen soccer this way. Valery Lobanovsky, while propelling Dynamo Kiev to greatness over a period of more than 30 years, strived to multiply his own team's abilities, to make them more than the sum of their parts. Lobanovsky was a trained engineer and a pioneer of the numbers game. Early in his coaching career he brought Dr. Anatoly Zelentsov to his side in order to collaborate on a scientific, systematic approach to soccer. Lobanovsky had studied cybernetics, a field whose central concept is circularity, and which deals with problems of control and regulation in dynamic systems. He and Zelentsov viewed a soccer match as an interaction between two subsystems of 11 elements, players, whose outcome depended upon which subsystem had fewer flaws and more effective integration. The key characteristic of a team is that the efficiency of the subsystem is greater than the sum of the efficiencies of the elements that comprise it. In another interview Zelentsov said, "Every team has players which link, coalitions, every team has players which destroy them. The first are called to create on the field, the latter, to destroy the team actions of the opponent." Using different concepts, this describes an O-ring production process. To these wise words we can add indicative statistics. Lobanovsky and Zelentsov would immediately diagnose that Messi's score arises from his inclusion in the Barcelona subsystem. As several desultory performances testify, his effectiveness in the Argentine O-ring production process is greatly diminished. To make it more clear, Chris Anderson and David Sally compared the strongest and weakest links from the clubs of top 5 leagues in the world. It was obvious that both were relevant to team performance. What wasn't immediately apparent is which was more relevant. Was soccer more a strongest link game or a weakest link one? For this, they used the most important piece in the economist's toolbox, regression analysis. Once they applied those analyses, while accounting statistically for the differences across the leagues, they observed that it is the weak link that matters more. For every percentage point that the best player improved, goal difference per game increased by 0.27. That means that if you increase the quality of your best player from 82% to 92%, by signing a new striker, say, then over the course of a 38-game season, you will find your goal difference improving by just over 10. The results were just as demonstrable for points per game. The same upgrade on the star player would mean 5 more points a season. For many teams, that is the difference between success and failure, a Champions League place compared to the ignominy of the Europa League, survival and relegation, winning the title or finishing an agonizing second. Those 5 points for each 10% upgrade are why even very good teams are prepared to sink millions into another superstar signing. Perez felt that Madrid's superstars would compensate for any remaining weaknesses. Analytically, this could happen. The significant effects of the strong links might leave no room for the weak links to have any statistical impact. However, strong and weak links are far from completely overlapping, leaving room for each to matter independently. In fact, the weak links are not marginalized at all. They have a strong independent effect on club performance. Improving your weak link from 38% to 48% was worth 13 goals a season, or 9 points in the league table. That means that upgrading its weak link can help a club more than improving its best player. Imagine if Liverpool had not been forced to field Loris Karius on that night in Lisbon and they had been able to choose someone just 5% better. The whole course of soccer history might be different. Maybe Real Madrid would never have managed that three-peat, and Coutinho's cash could have been used to enforce some other position. Or what if Perez had paid as much attention to strengthening his pavones as he had to garnering his cracks? Perhaps then the Galactico experiment would not have, ultimately, disappointed. Perhaps he would have more than one Champions League and one La Liga title to show for all his hundreds of millions of euros in investment. He knew that soccer was an O-ring process. He just tried to solve it in the wrong way. It is easy, as Perez did, to think of soccer as a game of superstars. They provide the glamour, the genius, the moments of inspiration. They sell the shirts and fill the seats. But they do not decide who wins games and who wins championships. That honor falls to the incompetence at the heart of the defense or the miscommunicating clowns in midfield. Soccer is a weak link game. Like the space shuttle, one small, malfunctioning part can cause a multi-million-dollar disaster. This has profound implications for how we see soccer, how clubs should be built and teams constructed, how sides should be run and substitutions made. It changes the very way we think about the game.